us today. We are the Jews Against Gasoline Coalition, formed to advocate against the gasoline method of execution. I am Jacqueline Stern, and I'm on the steering committee of the Jews Against Gasoline. I represent the National Council of Jewish Women, the Jewish Federation of the Americans, the Jewish Community Relations Committee, the Jewish Community Center, the Jewish Children's Regional Service, and Avodah, which are all my affiliations back in Louisiana. As a coalition, we also represent all of the synagogues and ABL and many other committees and organizations in the world. This coalition, Jews Against Gasoline, is a group of Jewish organizations, faith groups, and individuals in Jewish community from across Louisiana seeking removal of the gasoline alternative to the execution of law. The message is
back in the justice system for the victims of all
We are grateful to Senator Katrina Jackson for sponsoring this legislation, and we are grateful that the senators in the Judiciary Committee passed this
horrible crimes committed by somebody.
This
That person should be executed
the next
and found guilty in criminal court.
I would like to invite Senator Katrina Jackson and to step forward to say a few words. She is the Louisiana State Senator for District 1. Nitrogen was passed out of the Senate committee. It's the first step. We all know that death by resuscitation via gas is a trigger what happened during the Holocaust. So I was excited to join them in passing this bill to eliminate gas from a method of killing throughout the death penalty. So I stand with them. I will be standing with them holistically the entire time that this bill goes through the process, and very prayerful that this bill will pass. Thank you for government. Thank you. Now I would like to ask Aaron Block to please come up. He is the Director of the Jewish Cultural and Governmental Affairs at the Jewish Federation of the North.
Good afternoon. I'm Aaron Block. I'm the Director of Jewish Cultural and Governmental Affairs at the Jewish Federation of the North. Part of my role at the Jewish Federation of the North is as Director of the Jewish Community Relations Council, which is a local branch of the Federation, a standing committee that is made up of all of our local Jewish organizations, synagogues, and nonprofits, like the JCRC, Relations Council, decides to move it as something that is with broad consensus. Met as the Jewish Community Relations Council to discuss this and voted without any opposition to adopt a position firmly opposing the implementation of gas suffocation as a method of execution in Louisiana, unequivocally calling for the rejection of suffocation-based executions, whether through the use of masks or any form of gas chamber in the state. The resolution was adopted stated, read in part, that our position is rooted in our historical experiences, moral teachings, and commitment to justice. The use of lethal gas executions, those painful memories of the Holocaust, the millions of Jews and others murdered in gas chambers, do not suggest comparisons to the atrocities of Nazi Germany, which millions of relatives were murdered, many by suffocation in sea chambers. Still, we cannot imagine the possible that Jewish communities anywhere stand by while prisoners are executed in our names using any variation of that mechanism. As we know, House Bill 6 passed during the special session, the Jews Against Gasoline Coalition was born out of that, and that's why we're here today in support of Senator Jackson's bill, Senate Bill 430. We'd like to thank the Jewish Federation of Greater New Orleans. We'd like to thank everybody that's been involved so far with this coalition. We'd also like to thank Senator Jackson, along with the members of the Senate Judiciary B Committee, which voted this morning to unanimously opposition. They voted to move this out of committee to the Senate, so we are looking forward to that vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Next, we hear from Naomi Yasmin Clark, professor of language and culture at University. She teaches courses in American studies and is currently completing the book Anne Frank Anew, Renewing Diary in a Time of Anxiety.
Thank you so much. My name again is Naomi Yapiclos, and I'm a steering committee member of the Jews Against Gassing Coalition, and I'm also the Reverend Emmett Yepenu Distinguished Chair of Humanities at Loyola University in Portland, where much of my scholarship, as Jackie said, focuses on the Holocaust. I'll also be traveling to Yad Vashem, the World Holocaust Memorial Museum in Jerusalem this summer as a Cornell scholar. So is someone really concerned with how we teach not just about, but through the Holocaust to address contemporary concerns? I call on the legislature to ban the use of lethal gas in executions and pass Senate Bill 430. Even for those who support the role of capital punishment in our criminal justice system, the use of gas as a form of state-sanctioned murder should be deeply troubling. This is the perspective of our coalition, which does not take a stance on the death penalty itself, but opposes the use of lethal gas in executions. Let me give you some historical context. In 1939, the Nazis began experimenting with poison gas, predominantly carbon monoxide, as a means to kill those they deemed unworthy of life, and that's their term, due to disability or mental illness. After it was decided that conducting mass shootings was too emotionally taxing for German soldiers, the Nazis began to use hermetically sealed vans that filled with gas to kill hundreds of thousands of people, mainly Jewish but also Roma or mentally ill or disabled people. Finally, the Germans built mass killing centers, most famously at Auschwitz, but also at extermination camps such as Sobibor, Belzec, and Treblinka, in which a gas, the pesticide Zyklon B, was deployed to murder as many as 2,000 men, women, and children at one time. Approximately 2.7 million people were killed by gas at these killing centers. Now, of course, we recognize that the gassing of innocent victims of the Holocaust is quite different from executing suspected criminals. But for Jewish people, and really for anyone with a knowledge of the Holocaust, the historical association with the execution method is chilling and undeniable, eliciting a visceral response that addressed not justice, but genocide. Anne Frank is remembered for writing, in spite of everything, I still believe that people are good at heart. In fact, what she truly said was that she believed in the innate goodness of people. That is, in innate human dignity. So I urge our elected officials to draw on their inner goodness to remind them this goodness that guided them to seek public service, and remember that justice and the public good, however you feel about capital punishment, not served by resorting to the cruel and inhuman tactics of an authoritarian and anti-Semitic regime. We in Louisiana are counting on our legislatures to show the world that we are so much better than that. Thank you so much.
Next, we will hear from Arnie Filka from New Orleans City Council, former New Orleans City Council member at large, and president and former CEO of the Jewish Federation
We got people
of
that did horrible crimes back in the 90s that still haven't been executed. Justice has still not been given to the victims, to the family members.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you
Aaron
all
Todd
for
never executed.
coming out. I'm honored and proud to stand before you today in support of Senate Bill 430. I'd like to first thank Senator Katrina Jackson for authoring 430 and also the Senate Judiciary Committee for passing the bill out of committee earlier today. This was the right thing to do, and I urge the full Senate and eventually the House to also, of course, pass this important legislation. Just a few weeks ago,
We need justice. And I agree.
this is not First Amendment, by the way. This is just obstructing right now and trying to block us out, and we're not going to let this gentleman do that. Just a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity, through the work that I do with Ukraine advocacy, to ride the trains through Poland and other parts of East Europe. As I traveled from Polish city to Polish city, I carried Elie Wiesel's powerful Holocaust book titled Night, and imagine what my fellow European Jews had lived through 80 plus years ago when forced into cattle cars on their final journey to death camps most had never heard of, but now will never be forgotten. Chelmno, Belzec, Sobibor, Treblinka, Majdanek, and of course Auschwitz-Birkenau. Imagine the horrors at arriving at one of these camps in the middle of the night, with dogs barking and Nazi officers shouting out cruel instructions. Innocent men, women, and children, totally fatigued, hungry, and thirsty, wondering what they had done wrong to be brought to this hell. Imagine the horrors of being separated from their spouses, children, and other loved ones, and forced to go through a selection process where a Nazi doctor determined who shall live and who shall die. Imagine the horrors and indignity of being told to completely remove all of your clothes and strip naked so you can enter what the Nazis claimed were only shower rooms. Imagine the fear and horrors of the doors being closed and locked behind you. People crying and praying as lethal poisonous gas, not water, came out of the shower heads. People fighting for a last gasp of air, knowing that this was the end of life for you and others you so dearly love. And finally, imagine the inhumanity and evil perpetrated upon these gassed victims, whose only sin was to be Jewish, as they were immediately carried away to the nearby crematoria for incineration. Well, for nearly 3 million Jews, this was a reality, and the result of the final solution determined by Hitler and other leaders at the infamous Wannsee Conference in 1942. See, as was just said by Naomi, for the Nazis, it wasn't enough to just mass shoot Jews and other so-called undesirables by the Einsatzgruppen, as happened throughout most of East Europe, including to some of my family. Nor was it enough to later kill Jews through experimental gas baths designed for mass killing. No, the Nazis needed more. They needed a way to kill Jews faster and to kill more of them, and thus the creation of gas chambers and the death camps. It's hard for people of good conscience today to even imagine that such evil could exist among mankind. How can human beings perpetrate such evil on other human beings? But sadly, all of this madness occurred. Yet, despite destroyed the Jewish people, we survived and made new homes in Europe, South America, Australia, Israel, and America. Many of those survivors to America made their way to New Orleans and elsewhere in the great state of Louisiana. They became leaders in their communities, adding a cultural richness wherever they lived, and contributing to all that makes Louisiana so great. Indeed, the bond and history between Louisiana and its Jewish communities has always been strong and a source of pride for everyone. It is because of this historical bond that we ask that Senate Bill 430 be passed and that gassing forever be removed as a method of execution. It is not only unnecessary, but for the survivors and all Jewish people, brings back images of evil and horror which should never see again the day of light. As a country founded upon the principles of democracy, we can freely debate. We can freely debate different bills that come in the halls behind me. But as it relates to the topic of gassing as an allowed method of execution, there should truly be no debate in removing it for our current laws. Governor Landry and the Louisiana legislature, please do what is right, not only for Jews, but for the good people of our great state. Let's make Senate Bill 430 law. Can you hear us out? May it be God's will. Thank you.
Thank you, God, for bringing us this moment where we can join together and do what's right. Frankly, it's unfortunate that we need to be here, that we are compelled to speak out against such a troubling injustice as the one that was just passed in our state. I am deeply troubled by the law of past acid gas and method of execution in the state of Louisiana. It is by all accounts unprecedented and unnecessarily cruel. But everyone knows this already. What I, as a Jewish leader, need to add to the conversation is that the use of poison gas for state-sanctioned execution unmistakably and immediately closes millions of Americans the horrific memories of the depravity our ancestors endured at the hands of Nazi Germany when lethal gas was used for mass murder of our people. As a Jew and as a rabbi, I cannot stand idly by when such depravity is proposed in my own backyard. I cannot remain silent against a method of execution that so deeply offends my people and displays such blatant disrespect for our collective drama. Many members of Louisiana's Jewish population came to the state to escape Nazi persecution, built their lives here in compliance with Nazi hatred. Many others have family who died in Nazi death camps by lethal gas, had their beloved American homes, the land of their American dreams. To duplicate this method of execution is unconscionable. The Torah teaches us, Lo ta'amono dam re'echa, do not stand idly by the blood of your fellow. We are not standing idly by. Instead, we have formed this coalition, Jews Against Gassing, to push for the removal of this method of execution from law. We are grateful for Senator Katrina Jackson Andrews' willingness to serve as an ally to us in our effort by authoring Senate Bill 430 to remove the gassing method of execution. We're grateful for our Jewish community members that are here with us today in person and those that could not be here in person, but have emailed their legislators to spread the message of our coalition with their communities. We're also grateful that the first stage of this process, earlier today when Senate Bill 430 was heard, we were successful in getting it passed out of that committee. We hope that we will continue to be met with empathy and understanding for our perspective from our legislators as this bill proceeds through the legislative process. I urge the legislature to support Senate Bill 430 in order to refrain from taking our society back in time to the Dark Ages, to refrain from policy that is so callously ignorant of the memory and sensitivities of the entire Jewish community of this state, to refrain from behaving cruelly in the name of Louisiana's citizens, and to refrain from leading our beloved state down a path of moral rot from which there may be no return. Thank you. And now some words in my own voice. Jewish tradition, going back millennia, has much to say about capital punishment and criminal procedure. The part of the mission of the ancient text dealing precisely with this, we find one of the most famous teachings of all of rabbinic literature. When one destroys a single soul, it is considered as if they destroyed an entire world. The sages teach that in a trial where life hangs in the balance, witnesses must be unimpeachable. The accused must be rewarded the consequences in advance. Circumstantial evidence, no matter how convincing, is indisputable. Every opportunity for acquittal must be pursued. A court that would convict in such a case once in 7 years is considered particularly destructive. And others say perhaps 1 in 70 years. This is all to say, the stakes could not be higher, and Jewish tradition teaches that in such cases, the legal system must show extreme level of care at every single step. Following in the footsteps of Alabama and allowing execution by nitrogen asphyxiation is completely opposite the extreme level of care that is required in these moments. It is experimental and woefully untested. It horrifyingly evokes the memory of Nazi Germany, which should under no circumstances be used as a model for justice. So not only is the prospect of execution by gas morally repugnant, it is also deeply, deeply offensive to the memories of the millions who lost their lives to the Nazi regime. We are hopeful that Senate Bill 430 will be supported by our legislature. We firmly believe that each one of us is created with Tselem Elohim in the divine image, and that there are no exceptions. Honoring the dignity of each human life is an inviolable duty. The values that guide our support of Senate Bill 430 are not solely modern, but in fact they span millennia. I pray that Louisiana, my home, will continue on a path of dignity and a path of justice. Thank you.
Thank you for joining all of us today. We will take questions at this time.
You guys were out here during the crime special session and gave a lot of pretty powerful testimony against the gassing method. Do you think that you guys changed a lot of opinions from lawmakers who voted in favor of it then and maybe aren't so forward right now?
I think we're going to do that. I think once we explain what gassing is about and how it was affecting us as Jews, as individuals and as a community of Jews, I think that will take them and understanding of exactly what people in their constituency and in their districts and states.
Have any lawmakers approached you guys and said, you know, I voted in favor of it, and I'm realizing now that I was wrong. Thank you for your testimony. Anything like that? Been approached by anybody?
Yeah. There have been some.
appreciated.